When it comes to formatting your objects, shapes, pictures, and text boxes, I want to keep it really simple. Just go ahead and select like your text box, click on the text, and you can see the box around it that contains the text therein. And then up here you get the related contextual format tab that, well, if you click off the box it disappears. Go ahead and click on it and you can see all the different formatting options for your shape and the text therein. Also works for, well, when you select that, it's the picture, or it sees it as a picture. And you've got, again, your related contextual format tab, the options that you have for that. And it's different because, you got picture styles because you're selecting a picture. So it's formatting proprietary to the picture as opposed to the text box, which, well, you get your shape styles instead of the picture styles. So let's go ahead and click on our ghosty here and work on him. Click on the Format tab. Because what I want to go over in this training video is, first of all, the brightness and contrast. And we can come over here, go to the Adjust group, because if you want special effects, like I do for my ghost, you can do some cool effects by clicking on Corrections. Click on it, and you get your brightness and contrast. Now, what's the difference between the two? Well, brightness is the lightness of the picture, and contrast is the difference between darkest and lightest areas of the picture. So you can see here it's highlighted, and the brightness is 0 and contrast is 0, so we're normal. It's a normal ghost. But if I go to the left, I decrease in brightness. And you can see as I hover over it, in the pop-up it says negative 40% brightness. The contrast is still at 0%. But if I go up to less contrast, the differences between the darkest and lightest areas of the picture, you can see that there's just nothing that really pops. As opposed to going down the other way, the brightness is still the same. You can see as I go down, it's still at negative 40%, but the contrast flips around and goes to a positive 40%. So the darkest and lightest areas have even greater differences than before. So you can go ahead and click on that to select it, or if you want more options, well, there's options there. Click on that, and it opens up our task pane. And instead of going with the presets that we saw, you can also bring it up here as well, in case if you change your mind, you don't have to bust a lot of calories to come up here to click on corrections here to select it when you have this open. But with brightness and contrast, you can use the spin dials 1 or 2%, or come in here and type in 13%. That's a spooky number. Hit enter, or you can click and drag these little sliders here, and the contrast, the brightness, or darkness, and you can always reset it when you're like, hey, I don't like any of that. But I do like, let me click on the drop down arrow, this option here, brightness negative 40%, contrast plus 40. Click on it and he looks spooky. Next, let's close out of the task pane here. Let's go down to slide 7 and cover transparent color. So what I'm looking at is the white background here. I mean, it just looks too blocky. How about if I could get rid of that color, make it transparent? Wouldn't you say that's nifty? Of course you would. Let's go ahead and select it and come up here and click on the Format tab and go to the Adjust group, and we're looking at color. Click on it and ooh, you got a lot of options. You got color saturation. Look, I'm going to give them a tan. And that's saturation 400%. And you can see well, you got to look down below here as I hover. It gives us a preview. Okay. And then you got your color tones. So you can click one, select another, recolor. Kind of a weird looking party there. Gold accent color, 3 dark. But what I want to do is I want to set transparent color, make a color in the current picture transparent. And that's singular. It's not colors. So when I click on that and I'm like, ooh, I'd like to make a shirt transparent, do some cool effects. The problem is that even though it's a single color, you've got ripples, different shades, and so it can't handle the shades. So when I click on it, you see how part of it becomes transparent, goes right through to the back. Let's see if I go down. Well, you're not going to see it here. Oh, now you can see the text right there. Okay, let me go ahead and hit undo. And, well, hit undo again. Or I can reset the picture. Click on Reset Picture, and it's back to the way it was. And if you watch my earlier training video, we covered this, so shouldn't be a shocker here. Reset picture, unless you didn't watch it. Let's go ahead and click on color again and click on set transparent color and click on white. Okay, for the most part it does a fabulous job. You can see it got even that space underneath the arm and her hair there. You got the streamers that are coming down, so it got rid of some of it because it blended in with the white very well. She's missing a glass, so she can't party. In any case, let's go ahead and click off, and that's not bad. So if you do have something that's more definitive as a background, as being a single color, not having things kind of getting in the way, then you could really have something that you could do and work well with your presentation, like you're a picture editing pro. And then finally, let's go over the 3D rotation. We went over it briefly, but let's go ahead and with it selected, you can either come up here on the Format tab, go to the Picture Styles group, and click on Picture Effects, and you get your 3D rotation option. Or, you can right-click on the picture and go to Format Picture, and you can see over here, well, with this option selected, the effects, because, that's where it was under Effects. You get also the expanded 3D format. So you can come up here and click on it, of course, and go down to 3D rotation, and you get all these presets. Well, you get none. But then as you hover over it, this one's isometric left down. And you've got to look at see, if I move off of it, you won't be able to see the preview, but in any case, watch it. In any case, you get the idea. Just hover over it, find the one that you like, perspective, a little bit. That's kind of cool, but boy, it really plays up on the brightness there, doesn't it? Relaxed, moderately. Well, these guys are relaxed partiers. In any case, you can do that or click on Options, which, well, brings up the same task pane here. And you got, well, where it used to be collapsed, and all of this was collapsed here. 3D format, 3D rotation. So you got the format, and you can select one of the presets here if you want a bevel. Maybe make it round. Oh, let's see, it's just not working for me, so let me hit undo. But once you select one of the presets, you can adjust the width and the height of it, and bottom bevel and things like that, and contour and the material, the lighting. Do you want it to be cool, like freezing? Oh, that's a very cool party. Something I don't want to party with. So let's go ahead and collapse that and go to 3D rotation. There we go. So we got the presets. Again, you've got them here, so you don't have to come up here and click on the picture effects to go down there. It's right there in case if you want to get to the presets really quick. And then you got your options where you can actually type in your X rotation as your horizontal axis, from your days of algebra. Don't make me go over my math again. And then you've got the Y rotation, which is the vertical axis. And then, of course, your Z, the depth here. And so let's go ahead and type in 13, and it rotates a little bit. You can type it in, hit enter, use the spin dials, and you can also use the rotation arrows, as it were. In any case, there we go. And then the Y rotation, Y because it's there, and it's doing along the vertical axis. And then the Z rotation, so you can tilt it along more depth-wise. It's getting pretty funky. But you may have a purpose for it that would look a lot better than what I've got here. Click off, and that's not doing it for me. So if I'm like, undo, and I don't have the undo button, again, you can reset the picture one of many ways. You can select it, come over here in the task pane and click on reset, or up here on the format tab, go to the adjust group again. You got your reset, and we're back to where we started. Grouping objects means you're taking two or more shapes, images, or text boxes and making them into one, or to appear as one, to be one, basically for the purposes of moving or formatting them all as one. So for example, when it comes to capturing ghosts on film, you got to point the camera and then shoot and then follow through. Because, if you don't follow through where the ghost is going, you're going to be missing out on some great footage, probably, like them turning around and freaking you out. In any case, we've got the process here, and I want to move it down. Now I can go ahead and click and drag and move it down, but then it's like, oh, we'll see, I gotta look at those red dashed lines to be able to center it just so, and that's fine, but you're kind of moving around freehand style with the mouse, and I'm not going to do that. Instead, let me hit undo quite a few times here. Click off. I want to select all of them, and then go ahead with all of them selected, move them down, and then show you how you can group them. So to select all of them, you can use the Shift key or the Control key. Or let me start by marquing them, meaning that I start, well, about in this position and click and drag. And when I drag my mouse, you see how it's got a rectangle box that's covering, well, all those shapes and text boxes in it. When I let go, it selects everything within that selected rectangle, as it were. So that's known as marquing. That works out very handily in my example here, but I got to show you the other ways. Let me click off, and you can go ahead and select one and hold down the Shift key and click and select the rest, or you can use the Control key. Let me click off and click on that and hold down the Control key. Now when you hold down the Control key, when you select something else, be careful not to move the mouse, because you can see the pointer has a little plus sign. It not only selects, but if you move, it creates duplicates, and we get double vision. Let's go ahead and hit undo. And let's just use the Shift key. In other areas, when it comes to selecting, Shift is for block selection. When you select one object and then go to the other end and hold down the Shift key and select the last, it selects everything in between, but it doesn't do it here. Like I said, it does happen and work in certain areas, like when you're opening up and trying to find pictures, you can do that block selection. But in any case, let's just use the Shift key and select the rest. Now with all of them selected, this is a temporary group, because with them all selected, I can now go ahead and click and drag on one of the borders and they all come together. Oh, isn't that nice? Or I can use the up or down arrow keys, or if I hold down the Control key and go up or down, it moves it in smaller increments. And so once I move it and I click off and I'm like, oh, I didn't mean to move that there. Well, you could hit undo, or if you want to move it up just a little bit, but you're finding yourself, clicking and dragging to marquee to move it up. Oh, I didn't do it right. Let me go ahead and click off. Instead, let me go ahead and hit undo to get them resituated here. Let me click and drag and marquee them all again. You can group them so it's a permanent thing. So when I click off, it doesn't unselect all of them. It sees all of them as one. So when I click on one and move it, everybody else comes with them because, hey, when you pick on one, you're picking on the group, right? So to go ahead and group this, you could do it one of a few ways. You can either go ahead and right-click on the border of one of them, and then in the shortcut menu, you get Group to Group, or you can come up here and click on the Format tab and go to the Arrange Group, and, well, can you see the shapes? Where you got two shapes that have selections around them. Well, that's for grouping, and you can group, and now they're grouped. And you can see that now the selection is around all the shapes. It sees it all as one, not individually. They're now part of the cyborg. Click off, and then when I go ahead and click on one, it selects everybody. Then I can just click and drag and move them as one. Now, if you decide that you don't want them grouped because you want to work on one shape within the group, well, you don't have to ungroup to work on that one shape. So for example, if I go ahead and click on once to select, well, I'll just click on any one of them to select all of them. If I click on one individual, then it focuses on that. So I can go ahead, like on the Format tab, to the Shape Styles group, and apply formatting. Shoot, there we go. Whatever works for you. And so that could be individually picked out from the group and won't affect the rest of the group, which brings up a good point that when it comes to formatting, not just moving, when I click off and I click back on and it selects the entire group, if I don't click again and select something, a shape within the group, to pick on that one shape, then I can format the entire group. Again, Format tab, Shape Styles, and ooh, that's kind of fun. Let's do something more spooky here. There we go. And awesome. And then what I can do is if I really want to focus on one part of the process that we keep falling out of, like maybe follow. Okay, I got the point, I got the shot, but man, I ain't following no ghost. Well, go ahead and select that shape so it's got the selection or resizing handles around that, which of course you can go ahead and resize and, emphasize it a bit more and say, please, we got to follow through. And then go ahead and maybe pull focus on that by doing a special shape fill and making it something different or that stands out. And we got our color pink accent 2, darker 50%. And then of course you can go ahead and, well, if you want something else, go with one of these or choose a shape effect. Well, we covered all this, but the point being is that you can go ahead and isolate it and separate it from everybody else. Let's go ahead and after you do the initial click. So that brings up the next point. Well, what if you want to ungroup it? Well, let's go ahead and click off, select it, right click anywhere on it. You can go to group and say ungroup. And then you can right click on it and of course go back to group and regroup your group. And then it'll regroup it. Or you can do group. It's the same thing here. I mean, grouping and regrouping is still a group. And we're back to where we were here before we ungrouped it. Object order or layering is when two or more objects are stacked on top of one another and you want to be able to set the order of it. So for example, I've got two ghosts here and I want the ghost behind this one to be on top. So how do I get him to be on top to order this and layer it correctly to be number one? Well, go ahead and select the ghost that's already on top and either come up here on the Home tab to the Drawing group and click on Arrange. And here's what we're looking at, the order objects, which is bring to front, bring forward, or send to back, or send backwards. What's the difference between front, forward, back, and backwards? Well, it's by all or by one layer. What I mean by that is that if you hover over bring to front, it says it'll bring the selected object in front of all other objects. So if you have 20 objects and you can select the 15th object and say bring to front, it brings it past everybody else. They're on top, no ifs, ands, or buts. But if you want to bring them from, let's say, layer or order number 15 to order number 14, there you go right there. Bring forward. Bring the selected object forward one level so that's hidden behind fewer objects. So we've got, how many objects do we have here? Let's click off. We have 1. There we go, 2 and 3. All right, let me go ahead and hit undo to put them all back in position. So I have 3 layers. So if I can go ahead, and it looks like that little ghost head there is on layer number 2, but I want the ghost that's behind that one that's on layer number 3 to come forward one layer. I'd have to select him, or I can go ahead and select the one that's in front and push him back, well, depending upon how far back I want him to go and how many are behind him that I want to bring to the front. It's a little bit fun to do this, but I'll show you an easier way in just a minute. Let's go ahead, and with this ghost selected, you can either, like I said, come up here on the Home tab, go to the Drawing Group, and click on Arrange, and say, okay, this ghost we're going to send to back, all the way to the back, behind everybody, in which case, that one who used to be at the back, which was this ghost right here, is now on layer number 2, and the ghost who was at layer number 2 is now number 1. So you can do that, or you can go ahead and let's select him and put him back one layer. And that's by coming up here on the Home tab to the Drawing Group, and again selecting your options there, or you can come up here and click on the Format tab. It's also available here, but not all listed together. You have to click on the drop down arrow if you want to bring forward or front. So again, forward is one layer at a time, and front is completely in front, and then backwards. You can do it that way, or you can right click, and in the shortcut menu you get the same options. You just have to go ahead and there you go, hover over it, bring to front. And then it gives, well, you gotta be kind of fast here, front or forward here, and then send to back. And so I can send him, whoops, you gotta be fast here. I can send him to the back or just backward one layer. So now instead of the top layer, he's now at level 2. So that's how you can go ahead and, set the order of your objects. That's one way. Another way, and that might be a lot easier, especially if you have more than 3 objects, you may have 15 or 20 that are stacked on top of each other. For animation effects, which we'll cover in a later training video. But up here on the Format tab in the Arrange group, you have the Selection pane, and it says it makes it easier to select objects, change their order, or change their visibility. Ooh, that could be fun, because when you want to work on one behind another, you may want to hide the one on top so you can, work on that ghost, as it were, maybe change the brightness, the contrast, whatever you need to do, and then you can go ahead and show this layer right here, this ghost. So come up here and click on the Selection pane, brings up the Task pane, and we've got here, well, currently I have picture number 2 selected, and this is a hierarchical structure here, or order, the layering. So whoever's on top, picture 8, is this ghost right here, picture 2, it selects that guy, and then, okay, we've got our rectangles. So we have our rectangle here, our text box, and rectangle 2, and if you're like, okay, that's fine, but you know what, I could really use help in identifying the ghosts. Rectangles I don't care about. But picture 8, well, that's on top, yes, but can I call him something besides picture 8? Of course you can. Go ahead and click after you select it. Gently click on it again, and it opens it up, and then you can go ahead and delete that and call that the, should we call him the scribbly ghost, because it looks like somebody took some crayons and scribbled on him. Call him Crayon Ghost. And then hit enter. And then the guy behind him, picture 2, well, he's the littlest ghost, so we'll just call him Little Guy. Hit enter. And then the final picture here, and then go ahead and click on it. We'll call him, well, his color is just all white and black, so we'll just call him the White Ghost here. There we go. And then, of course, you can identify your rectangles. That could be your text box, captured ghost. We might as well, right? Captured ghost, text, hit enter, and then rectangle can be our title. There you go. Makes it easier here. So you can go ahead and easily select who you want to work on. Like if I want to work on the little guy, if I'm out here, I'm trying to select him. Okay, this guy's in the way of the Crayon Ghost. And so to get to the little guy, I can select him here, but still, if I want to hide the Crayon Ghost, you get the little eye option here. You can click on him to hide him, and then you get full access. You can work on him there. And then, of course, you can go ahead and click on him to bring it back up. And that looks like an eye, and when you punch the eye, you close the eye. And so you can no longer see anybody. So you can go ahead and do that. Now, as far as the layering goes, if I want the little guy to be on top, click and hold and drag your mouse up, and now the little guy's on top. Well, let's move him down, click and drag and move him down. And then you can punch everybody in the eye to hide them all. Or there you go, hide all. And then you can bring more objects, reposition them, and then go ahead and say show all, or just those objects or shapes that you want hidden while you work in other parts, that so it doesn't get in the way of your creative juice flow and how you want things set up. And then when you're ready, show all and bring them all back. Gridlines and guides are both used to help align or position objects on your slide. For example, I've got my process here, and it looks like the top of this text box is not aligned with these other two. One thing you can do is go ahead, what we've done in earlier training videos, is click on that, the top of the text box in this case, and move it up until you can eyeball it, and then these red dashed lines come into play. Well, that's known as a smart guide, and that's the technical term. I didn't refer to that in earlier training videos, but that's what we're going to be talking about here. Is by default it's turned on, so if you want to turn it off, I'll show you how you can do that. But it lines it right to it, snaps it, and you can let go. Beautiful. Let me come up here and hit undo. That's one way. Let me click off. Another way is coming up here and clicking on the View tab, going to the Show group, and there you go, grid lines. Let's do that. Let me go ahead and check it. Now, grid lines display as multiple horizontal and vertical dotted lines forming a grid on the slides, and can help you accurately place your objects on your slides. And the spacing here is adjustable. So when I want to go ahead and say, well, you can see right there that grid line goes just close to the top of that text box, but you got more space there, so you're off. Go ahead and click and drag it up, but then the smart guides come into play and it snaps right to it. So if I want to snap it right to the grid line here, it doesn't work because smart guides are turned on. So I can do one of, many things. I can either turn off the smart guides, or without using the mouse, because the mouse wants to snap it to these other two, you can use the arrow keys on the keyboard, and it jumps. So if it jumps too far, you can hold down the control key and then use the arrow keys to do it in smaller increments, the movements that is, and it looks like it's right on. And then the others, click and drag and it'll align up just so. In any case, you're back to the smart guides. So if we want to go ahead and turn off the smart guides, come up here on the View tab, go to the Show group, and click on its expandable dialog box, and we get some other options here. You've got the Snap Objects to Grid, so with the smart guides turned on, it snaps it to that if it's within the vicinity of other shapes that it wants to pull up. You can see right there, display smart guides when shapes are aligned. So if I uncheck that, click Okie dokie, and then I start doing it, we don't get the smart guides with the others. And so you can see that if I want to snap it to that, it snaps right to it. As soon as I get close to it, it's like a magnet, it just goes, sucks it right in. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and hit undo. And so you got the snap option. Let's go ahead and click on the expandable dialog box button again for the Show group. And if I turn that off, that way when I get close enough to the grid here, it doesn't suck right to it, because maybe I want to align it just below it and not right on it. So now I can go ahead and click OK and go just below by using the mouse. Now you don't have to worry about it if you use the arrow keys, because it's not going to snap right to it. It's only if you're using the mouse. And come back up here, and like I said, that the grid line, let me click on the expandable dialog box, the spacing is adjustable, and displaying the grid on the screen, it's already being displayed. In other words, when you uncheck that and click OK, it'll uncheck that right there. So if I expand it and check it, it'll display it again. And the spacing, you can do it in, you've got 1/10 of an inch, and it updates it over here. Or if you want to go ahead and use the spin dial box or type it in, if it doesn't match up with how it measures it over here in these increments, then it shows it as custom. But if you measure it in the increments that it has here, then you don't get that custom. It's just only if you mess with it over here. Let's go to 1/8 and click Okie dokie. There we go. And let's go ahead and uncheck that. And then you have what are called guides. And guides are lines that allow you to accurately position objects on a slide. And you can add and reposition them here. And so to reposition them, just hover over, make sure you're not on a text box here, you get the 4-way arrow, but in a place where there's nothing there. And then you can hover over it and click and drag and move them around. Now, if you can't find a place that's free of bringing up the 4-way arrow that you can actually hover over the guides, then you want to watch an earlier training video on object order and layering, where I show you how you can go ahead and use the selection pane to, hide these text boxes so you can actually use the guides, actually hover over it and get your arrows pointing in opposite directions so you can click and drag and not, be clicking on the text box trying to get that guide there. In any case, go ahead and position it however you'd like, and then when you click and drag and position it, that little number that pulls up is increments of 3/4 of an inch or 0.75, so you can get more techie there. And then let go, and then you can go ahead and click and drag your shapes to align it just so, and it snaps right to it. And so snap, just like a magnet, sucks it right up. Again, if you get close and you don't like the magnet here, then you can use the arrow keys and it won't suck right to it. And then, of course, smaller increments, hold down the control key and then use the arrow key. Great. Let's go ahead and hit undo a couple of times or several times to get them all back to where they were, so I don't have to do all that work again. And then, of course, you can go ahead and say, look, I don't want that guide. Let's click and drag and push that off. Then I just have this guy right here. Click and drag him off. Go ahead and uncheck it, recheck it, and they're back. Now, one other thing we can do, let's go ahead and turn off the guides, is let's move this guy down a little bit. And we can go ahead and let me click on the expandable dialog box and display the smart guides again. I like them. So let's go ahead and turn that on and snap objects to grid. And whatever changes you make here, if you want that to be the new default, go ahead and set it. Otherwise, I'm going to leave it alone and click okie dokie. So when I move it, there's the smart guides. In any case, you can do it that way, but let me click off. If you're not good with the mouse and you got a shaky hand, and some days are better than others, what you can do is go ahead and select, hold down the Shift key, and click on all the others, and you can use the alignment feature. And what that does is it'll take, in this case, if I want to align all the tops together, the one that's at the very top of all the others, it'll bring all the others and align them up to that top of what I have selected here, these text boxes. So you can come up here, click on the Format tab, go to the Arrange group, and there we go. Click on Align Objects, and let's go ahead and say Align all the tops to the one that's furthest up, and that's going to be, it looks like the chute. And click Align Top, and there you go. And we talked about this in an earlier training video on our advanced drawings about how to go ahead and use the alignment feature, but hey, thought I'd bring it in as a nice quick review. A table is a grid or a group of cells where you can enter and organize your data into. And the data that I want organized is my projected and actual incomes for both quarters 1 and 2. And so to do that, I want to organize that into a table. To insert a table, I can do it one of a couple of ways. If I have a content box, well, that worked out well. Go ahead and click on the first icon there, the Insert Table. Click on it, and you can choose the amount of columns and rows that you'd like in your table. Let's spin dial that down to 4 columns by 2 rows and click OK. There you go, 1, 2, 3, 4 columns by 1, 2 rows. Now if that doesn't work for you, or you don't have a content box, let's go ahead and click on the border of it, hit the delete key, and of course you can go ahead and reinsert it. Or again, if you don't have a content box, then come up here and click on the Insert tab, go to the Tables group, click on the Table drop-down arrow, and there you go. Hover over that, and you get a 1 row by 1 column, so 1 cell, 1 by 1. But as you branch out, well, look over there in the slide, you can see that it gives you a preview of it. So if you like what you see, a 3 by 4 table, then go ahead and click on the last cell in your selection here that's highlighted. When you click on it, it solidifies it. And so you can see the first row in the table of 1, 2, 3 columns by 4 rows has a darker shade of green. That's known as the header row or the heading column. In other words, the labels for each of your columns here that heads your columns. So you can give it a label here so when people look at it, they can see the purpose of the column. Like this one's going to be for quarters, so I'll go ahead and type in the label quarter, and then down below I'd type in like quarter 1, quarter 2, and so on. But let's go ahead and keep typing in our labels. You can, of course, click around to move your cursor about, or what I like to do is to use the arrow keys of the tab key. That way I don't have to lift my hands off the keyboard and put it on the mouse. I can keep it there. So there's left arrow key, right, or let me go left. You can use the tab key, and if you need to go backwards, hold down the Shift key and then hit tab and it goes backwards. So let me go ahead and hit the tab key to advance to the next cell and type in projected income. Well, just projected. Hit the tab key, then our actual income. And before we type in the rest of the data for our table, let's think about the layout. What if I inserted too many rows or columns or not enough? So if I need to insert more or to delete them, with the table selected, then come up here to its related contextual tabs. Well, we're not working on the design, it's going to be the layout. If If you don't see them, it means, let me click off, you don't have your table selected. You can see they disappeared. So go ahead and click inside of it. And again, we're not working on the design, although that's pretty. We'll come back. Let's go to the layout because we're working with adding rows or columns or deleting them. So you can see deletes by itself in this sectioned off line here. Then over to the right is inserting above or below are going to be your rows. Left or right are going to be your columns. So be mindful of where the cursor's at, because if you insert above, well, the cursor's there. It's going to insert a row above this row right here and push the header row up one. But if I click here in this row and click on Insert Above, it pushes, well, that header row down to make way for the new row. So that's not going to work. But before I go ahead and undo that, let's learn about the delete option, which is, hey, right next to it. But before we do that, how about if we go ahead and insert a column to left or right? If I do it to the left, it's going to push everything over and have a new column over here because the cursor is right at the edge. If I click anywhere within this column and I say Insert to the right, it'll insert that new column to the right and push this column over to the right. So insert right, and there you go. Now I could go ahead and undo all that, but if I don't have the undo to delete, well, just go ahead and click anywhere within the column that you want to delete. And so come up here, click on delete, and you can delete, well, the entire table. It's gone. We don't want to do that. Let's undo. Instead, we want to delete our column, and it disappears. And click anywhere within the row. And let's delete the rows. Oh, now my table's getting squishy. Let's go ahead and hover over the resizing handle, right middle one. These circles are all resizing handles. So just go ahead and hover over one until you can see arrows pointing in opposite directions and click and drag it out. And then how about the bottom middle resizing handle to give us more space vertically in our cells here? Cool. Now, in addition to inserting or deleting up here in the rows and columns group, you also have the option to insert and delete with a simple right click. So if I go ahead and click anywhere within this row and right click in the mini formatting toolbar, hey, there you go, you can insert and delete. Well, you have to expand it so you can see what you want to insert, either columns to left or right or rows above or below, and also delete. So if we do above, well, you get the idea. Now, if I do another one, let's insert another one, and it says rows above. So here's a little tip. It says rows, even though we're only inserting one at a time, but let me go ahead and click and drag and select these two rows. And then if I right click on that selection and I click on Insert to, let's do rows below, how many rows is it going to insert? Well, the number that I have selected. So Insert, and that's what it means by plural for rows. Isn't that nifty? So let's go ahead and delete our selection since we already have it selected, and click on delete and delete the rows. And then we can go ahead and, well, let's right click up here and delete that row there, and then it defaults back to our labels being put up in the header row here, so that worked out well, and I don't have to type them back up here. Now, in addition to inserting rows and columns, you can also merge and split cells. So for example, I've got a total of 3 cells here in one row. If I want to go ahead and break it up, come up here on the Layout tab to the Merge group and say you want to split. And it says it splits the current cell into multiple cells. Click on it, and it says when you do this and you split the cell, how many columns do you want and how many rows? If I just say leave the rows the same, basically just one row, it'll give me 2 columns. So click Okie dokie, and now I've got a total in this row of 1, 2, 3, 4 columns, but down below I just have 1, 2, 3 columns in each row. So there you go. We got the splits. Now if you're like, ooh, I don't like the splits, then go ahead and click and drag and select the 2 cells that you don't want split but you want merged, and then with it selected, come back up here and say merge. Whew, that's great. We're back to where we started. Okay, next let's go over the alignment. You have your horizontal and vertical alignments, so I don't know if this is going to work. Well, it'll work here because that one has got some extra space, so you can see that when I go from left to right, it aligns it over to the right and then center. And then vertically, it's up at the top. Let's do center, and it nudges it down. Okay, hey, let's do that for all of them. So let's go ahead and click and drag and select the entire row, and then come up here and do middle and center. Oh, that looks fancy. And then you got your, well, we've got text direction. I don't want to flip it around, but let's click on it to show you that Currently it's horizontal, but you can rotate it. So it's either going, well, looks like ABC top to bottom, or flipped around, or stacked. And you got more options here. So it opens up the task pane, and well, there's your vertical alignment there, and your text direction. And then your margins, which is like for this cell right here, the default for the left margin is 0.1, but if I increase that, it pushes it over because the margin's increasing, and I don't want to do that, but you probably do. In any case, let's keep it simple here and close out of that. And now let's move up here to our Design tab. Ooh, look at those fancy table styles. But before we get to that and the pretty colors, let's go from left to right here. Let's talk about the header row. Now the header row checked means that it applies fancy formatting to the row that contains your labels for each of the columns here, which we don't have any data, so how about if we fill this out? Fill the rest in. Let's do Q1 for quarter one, hit the tab key, and the projected income for quarter one was 125K. And there we go, we got our data now. Okay, so let's come back up here. So our header row, when you uncheck it, it doesn't take away that this is the heading or the labels for the columns here. It just removes the formatting. So now it's just got the default alternating row color, banded color of a light green to, looks like white. It appears on my screen here to a lighter green. In any case, let's go back and say that's the header row. So it offsets it with a different color or a more intense color, a darker shade of green, to say, hey, these are the labels or the headings for these columns. And then you've got the total row here that when you check it, it applies the same formatting to the last row. And the last row doesn't have to say total. I mean, if I deleted this, let's click in here, right click and delete it. And then you can see that the last row, since it's been checked, it doesn't care. It doesn't have any coding. It says, hey, it says total here. Let me apply the special formatting to it. So you check it, it just automatically formats the last row with the special formatting. And it's typically used for, let me go ahead and hit undo a couple of times, for your final row that has the totals for your columns here to say, hey, aren't the totals pretty important as well as the labels for the columns? In any case, let me go ahead and uncheck that. Then you have banded rows. And you can see in the pop-up it has alternating row colors, and that pop-up it's got it going from a light blue to white to light blue to white, so alternating between those. And the reason why it does that is to keep your eye focused. So if you have a huge table and several rows, when you're looking at, for example, this row here, quarter two, and you're like, okay, projected is 180,000 and the actual is 200,000. You see, when you start going out of the row, you've got these borders that are in color going, hey, I'm not in Kansas anymore. Oops, I'm not in my white zone here. I'm in some other colors, so I got to keep in the white. It keeps you focused. It's got these blinders, as it were, or colors to say, hey, stay in the white area for quarter two. Don't go above or below. And also for quarter one, I mean, you come up here, you're like, oh, that's really dark. That's not the row that I was in. And then down below, a white. So your banded rows as opposed to your banded columns. Now if I do banded columns, it's going to have this as a light green, that white, and this is a light green. So these two cells will be colored. Let me show you. And just leave me with this. So if I uncheck banded rows, then you can see how we've got a light color here of green, then white, then light for banding it, alternating. But I'll go back to banded rows and uncheck banded columns. And then you can go ahead and apply special formatting to the first column because maybe you have labels here in a cross-tab table, as it were, where you have labels for your columns and for your rows, which coincidentally I do. But is it enough to want to pull focus to it? Maybe not. And then your last column here, if that's important for your actuals. Ooh, that's important. So let's go ahead and uncheck that. You have your table styles. You can click on More and hover over it, and then you can see the preview behind that. And as I hover, that's theme style 1, accent 2. It's good to remember their names in case if you need to tell somebody that you chose, well, I chose some style. Well, there's the name of it. In any case, go ahead and hover and click on one that you like. I'm going to leave it as is and click off. And then if you just want to focus like on a single cell here, you can click on the bucket and say, let me just color that in with a special color. Or actually, you can even do a picture. Click on Picture, Picture, and let's browse on my computer. Pictures, and let's sample it and do chrysanthemum, and oh, well, you get the idea. It doesn't work that great here. And well, you can also format the font as well. Select it, and then let's click on the A to make it white and click off. That's a little bit better, but you know what? I think it's so tiny here. I may want to make it bold and change the font. Let's see if I can go up to 20, still have it fit. In any case, you can customize it however you'd like. Now, if you want more details about how to work with your tables, I recommend that you watch my word training video on tables. I go to it in greater detail and in depth. Like I said, PowerPoint's trying to be the jack of all trades, a word processing program, as well as, well, you got a table here, which is part of the word program, but also can integrate with Excel and also other things to pull it together so it's something presentable. In the previous training video, we learned how to create a table, but if you have a table in your Word document and you want to use that rather than recreate it here, here's some options. Well, first of all, let me go ahead and minimize this down to the taskbar so you can see that I've got my ghost hunting income document. And double-click to open it up, and there's my table. Now, it's important that one of the ways that I show you how to go ahead and to bring that over into your PowerPoint onto that slide, any slide, that all you have in this document is a table, because if you have any extra information within that document, it's going to be brought over with it, at least the way that I'm going to be showing you. And the first way that I want to show you is by inserting it as an object. So let's go ahead and close out, and keep in mind that the text in the document is black. Why? Because when I restore my PowerPoint window here, the background is going to be black, so after I insert it as an object, well, black against black, I'm not going to see anything. So here we go. How to insert it as an object. Come up here, click on the Insert tab, go to the text group, and it's right there, Object. Embedded objects or documents or other files you have inserted into this document. Instead of having separate files, sometimes it's easier to keep them all embedded in a document. So I'm embedding it all here, but let's go ahead and click on it and see what options we get. So what we want to do is not create a new one. We want to create it from a file that's already out there. So let's go ahead and browse for it. And it's on my desktop. So I can come over here after selecting desktop in the navigation pane to the desktop on my computer. And it's Ghost Hunting Income, double click. And let's go ahead and click Okie dokie. I'll show you what happens when you link it, meaning that any changes you make in that document will reflect the changes here, and then displaying it as an icon. But let's keep it simple here, then click Okie dokie, and see it's black, because it's black against black. So what we need to do is to change that color is to go ahead and double click on it, and it freaks out. You can see the table now, but we couldn't see it because, black against black. Let's go ahead and hover over one of the resizing handles so we can stretch this open and out, and then come in here and stretch the table inside of it by clicking and dragging and stretching it out. And then we need to change the color from black to white, so let's click and drag, and okay, that's not going to work. It's not going to select over here. So let's do the shortcut keys, Control A as in all, and then we can go ahead and right click on the selection, and in the mini formatting toolbar, let's go ahead and click, it already was selected, but let's go ahead and select it again, white. Changes white. Let's right click again on the selection and increase the font size because it's so teeny tiny. Let's do 36. That's going to be pretty big, but let's go ahead and see. Click off and okay, and then click off. That's how it looks. Of course, you can click on it and drag it around, and not too bad. So if I go back and I do this again and I say link to it, any changes that I make within the Word document will update it here. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's select it, delete it, and then come back up here to Insert, Text Group as an object, create from file, browse for it. It's on the desktop, and it's right there, Ghost Hunting, double click. And then let's go ahead and link it, and then click Okie dokie. It freaks out. Now, since it's linked to the document, if I double click on this to make changes to it, it's not going to open up as an embedded object. It's actually going to take me to the Word document. Double click, takes me to the Word document because it's linked. So again, it's important to keep in mind that I don't have anything in addition to the table here, because if I did, it would pull it over. So any changes I make here, like with numbers or even, I better do Control A, even the color and the size. So right click on it and change it to white and change it to size 36 and then save it and then close out. What's going to happen? Oh, I'm nervous. Well, okay. It updated it. I just have to go ahead and click and drag to open this up more, so that's not too bad. Cool. Now you can do it that way, or let's select it, hit the delete key, Let's come up here and insert it as an object again, because the final thing I want to show you, create from File, Browse, Desktop, and then Ghost Hunting, is to display it as an icon. It's Microsoft Word. You can change the icon if you want to choose another one, but I'll keep it simple and just leave it as this icon here. So when I click Okie dokie, oh brother, let's click and drag this and it starts getting blurry. In any case, it's an icon there. So if you want to go ahead and double click on that, it opens up Word, and it's just basically a link to the document here. It doesn't display anything in it. So let's go ahead and close out of here, and with it selected, delete it. And one last thing I want to show you is, let's go ahead and just insert it simply as a table, copy and paste. So to do that, let's minimize this down to the taskbar. Let's double click to open up Word, and go ahead and let's click on the tag of the table. Now, I recommend that you watch my word training video on tables, because I go into it in so much greater detail than what you'll see in PowerPoint. Because again, PowerPoint's trying to be the jack of all trades to make something presentable, where Word specializes in word processing and tables and things like that, and Excel and charts, which we'll cover that in a later training video. And what I show you about charts in PowerPoint is just basically the basics to get you going, because again, Excel is the specialist on charts. In any case, to go ahead and select your table, you can click on the tag and then come up here and just click on copy, and it's copied, or Control C, and then go ahead and close out, and then restore your PowerPoint and right click in a blank area here. And you got your options for your table. You can use the destination styles, keep the source formatting, embed it. That looks kind of nice, well, bigger. And then we've got picture, which you can't edit it if you keep it as a picture, or keep text only. So if I do keep text only, let's go ahead and click on the content box to delete that, and click over here and drag it over. And that way, if I want to make any changes to it, and go ahead and highlight everything here, make it bold and beautiful, change it. Let's come up here, click on the Format tab, sees it as a text box, and so you can go ahead and add some color to it. Oh, that kind of pops. If you have some data in your Excel worksheet that you'd like to bring over, there's a couple ways I want to show you how you can do it. Actually, it's the exact same ways as we covered in the previous training video on inserting a table from Word, and in this example it's going to be from Excel. So let's go ahead and minimize this down to the taskbar. So you can see on the desktop I've got my Excel workbook. Double click to open it up, and there's my data. Now you want to make sure that when you insert it as an object, which is the first way I'm going to show you how, is that there's nothing else within the worksheet here, and as far as I can see, there isn't anything else, because, well, that's important. Otherwise, it's going to insert this and all the spacing in between, if there is any, for any additional data within that worksheet. So there you go. Let's go ahead and close out. Go back down to the taskbar to restore the program. Let me go ahead and click in the table, and then, of course, click on the border, hit the delete key to get rid of that. And then, well, I can get rid of the content box, click on the border of it, hit the delete key, and that's fine. And then to go ahead and insert it as an object, come up here, click on the Insert tab, go to the text group, and there it is. And if you're curious about what an object is, you can see that embedded objects or documents or other files you have inserted into this document. Instead of having separate files, sometimes it's easier to keep them all embedded in a document. So instead of having them linked up, which you can do, and I'll show you that in just a second, that if you embed them in here, then it's just one file. But if you have them linked, well, it's going to be linked to that other document or Excel workbook or Excel file. That if you move that around, it may get lost and it won't update when you make any changes in that workbook to update it in here in the PowerPoint presentation. So to go ahead and insert it as an object embedded, let's go ahead and click on it. And then we want to create it from a file, because the file is out there on the desktop. So go ahead and click on Browse, and come over here in the navigation pane, select Desktop, and then over here, there it is, Ghost Hunting Income, the workbook. Double click, or the file that contains a spreadsheet that makes up a workbook. And then you get the option to link it, which I won't do now. And you can also display it as an icon. Let's go ahead and click Okie dokie, keep it simple. As it inserts, and there it is. Well, you can't see anything, because why? Because back in the Excel worksheet, if you remember, that the font was all in black. So black against black, well, you can move it down here. Hey, now you can see it, but let's not do that. Let's move it up and double click. to open up the embedded object, and then hover over the bottom right hand corner to resize and up. You can see that we've got the worksheet here, but it's embedded in PowerPoint, so it's not opening up Excel. And then with the content selected, it's so teeny tiny, as well as black against black. So to change it, well, I could right click on it or come up here on the Home tab to the font group and make it size 36. Oh, that's huge. And then we better like hover in between the column headers and click and drag to stretch them out, or double click to do a best fit. And you can learn all about this in my Excel training videos about how to resize your spreadsheets, your columns, your rows, and learn fancy shortcuts like that. And then of course, for this to appear against a black background, I need to come up here and, well, I could change it to red. That's fine. And then go ahead and click off, and let's see what, oh my goodness. Click and drag that. And it's got everything else in here. So let me resize that. But when I resize it, it resizes that. So let me go ahead and double click and resize this so it's around it more. And I got to resize it out. I don't want to see those extra empty cells. Let's click off and see how that looks. Okay, well that's better. Nice. So you can do it that way, or let's go ahead and, yes, delete it and do it again, only this time let's link it. So come up here, do the same steps, Object, from File, Browse, and then Desktop, and it's right there, the file goes hunting. This time let's link it. So any changes that I make in the Excel workbook will actually update here. So let's go ahead and click Okie dokie. And then double click and it opens up, because it's no longer an embedded object, it's linked. It opens up the actual Excel file here, the worksheet, and in which case we need to change the colors, right? Because, you know, black, we can make it red and then change the font size to, let's do 36 again, and then double click in between the column headers really fast, and at the very end to resize it. Click Save and then close out. And does it update? Oh, it does. That's nice. And then let's resize it just a little bit, shrink it down. So you can either double click to open it up and edit it, or right click on it. And if any changes have been made and it's not updating, you can say update it in case if somebody made changes to, you know, the numbers here in quarter 1 or quarter 2. Right click on it again. And then the link worksheet, you can edit or open it or even convert it. When you convert it, it wants to convert it to an object, in which case it won't be linked. It'll just be embedded now, but I don't want to do that, so I'll click cancel. So if I go ahead and we got, let's see, 400, 500, 500, 600, and I minimize this down to the taskbar and open up that workbook, double click. So somebody else is in here working on it saying, you know what, let's do 700K. Yeah, and then hit enter and they save it and they're done with the work. Will it update 700K? Close out of it. Let's go ahead and restore the program, and it's not showing it here, so right click since we already have it open and update the link. Hey, there we go. And then it looks like we got great job for 1. Let's go ahead and undo that, and it got cut off because when I updated it, it looks like it just pulled in that part. So great job for the first half of the year. In any case, that's what happens when I right click to update the link. You may get some kickbacks depending if the data is too big or if you need to go back and resize it. So you may run into some issues there. How about if we go ahead and resize it here and double click, let's go back to it. Well, there we go. That's the problem. For some reason it just flipped out on me. Let's go back to make sure everybody is size 36 and in red and not black. Go ahead and click Save, close out. And you can see why I was doing that. It was updating it in the PowerPoint here, the slide, in which case you can go ahead and rewind it and watch the video again as I did it if you missed it. And you can go ahead and delete that. And then another way is to insert it as an embedded icon. So you can click on it to open it up to make your changes. So insert, again, it's going to be an object. But I wanted to show you that when we do it from File, Browse, same thing, the desktop. I'm speeding through this, ghost hunting income. Instead of linking, let's do it, display it as an icon. There's the icon. You can change the icon to something else. Browse for another icon, whatever your flavor is. I'm going to keep it simple. Click cancel and just have it there. And what that means is when you click OK, you get this teeny tiny icon here. In any case, it's just there for you. You can stretch it open. And well, you can see it's got the name of the file, well, the program, Microsoft Excel worksheet. Let's go ahead and move it up. So you can go ahead and double click on that and have access to it during the presentation to double click to open this up, as long as that file that you linked it to is on your computer. And then you can show them, hey, I'm going outside of PowerPoint to show you in Excel all the things here because, PowerPoint can only do so much as far as the spreadsheet goes, where, hey, this is actually a spreadsheet, Excel, that we can do a lot of things in here that we can't do in PowerPoint. So when you're done with your presentation in Excel, you can close out and zip back into here and go on to the next slide and finish your presentation. So you can do it that way. Let's delete that. Or finally, let's go ahead and minimize that down to the taskbar and open up the Excel file and select everything and do a simple copy and paste. So go ahead and Control C to copy and then go back to our PowerPoint and then right click and you get your pasting options. You can use destination styles, keep the source formatting, red, embed it, so you can go ahead and make changes as an embedded object here or as a picture or keep text only. So if I just go ahead and say let's keep source formatting and click and drag that up and then resize that down. Okay, I might have to change the size of the font here, and you can see now it's a table. So you can go to the Design tab and hover over that, and oh, that's fancy. Let's choose that. And then, of course, like I said, oops, let me hit undo. I grabbed the side or the border of it. I wanted to click and drag and select everything here within the table. Of course, you can just click here and come up here and click on the Layout tab and go to the Table group and click on Select. So you can select the table, select the current column that you're in or row. Let's do the table. So it selects the entire table. And you know that it's selected because you can't select anything else unless you click off somewhere. Then you get select options again to select the entire table. And then we can go to the Design tab. Let's keep the font, the colors. Let's go to the Home tab and change the size. Yeah, okay, that gets pretty big, about 32. In any case, you know how to go ahead and clean it up. Go back up to the Layout tab where you want to change the alignments, maybe center line everything, and some of the fun things we did in an earlier training video when it came to inserting and modifying our tables. And if you want to learn more about tables, again, watch my word training video on tables. I go to it in greater detail. A chart is a graphical representation of your data, and to get graphic with your data, let's go ahead and insert a chart. And you can do it one of a couple of ways. If you've got a content box, then go ahead and find and click on the Insert Chart icon, the second icon there. Or if you don't have a content box, then come up here and click on the Insert tab, go to the Illustrations group, and it's right there. But since I do have a content box, I'm going to go ahead and click on it right there. It opens up a window divided into 3 sections. The first one has a list of all the categories like your column charts, line charts, pie. Let's go ahead and select that. And then the second section has, the types of pies from the category, like pie, 3D pie, pie of pie, bar of pie, and donut. Awesome. And if you want something a little bit more visual before you, insert it, like the bar of pie, select it, and then down below hover over it, and whoa, that gets big. Okay. Looks nice, but nah. Let me hover off of it and come back up and select column. Let's see, we've got it clustered here, and then this one's stacked. I'm going to go with clustered and click Okie dokie. Now a couple things happen. First of all, it creates my clustered column chart, and it's based upon the data in this very simplistic worksheet here. You don't get any of the formatting options. You just get the save, the undo, the redo. And if you want, and you've got Excel installed on your computer, you can edit the data in Excel and get all the fancy features and commands when it comes to working with your data. But this works for us here in this training video. But I'll show you how you can edit that in the actual Excel program. So looking at the blue section, that's the data. And we've got a number here, 5, down below in the chart. Well, 5 is right there, the highest bar within the chart. That makes sense. But what are these right here, the series and the categories? Well, the series here in this row down below is the vertical columns. So series, you can see down below, represents the green for series 1. So all the numbers in that column, that's going vertical here, climbing up, and the more numbers, the better, right? Except for in golf. In any case, there's the series 1 axis, series 2 hot pink, series 3 is in orange, and their respective data accordingly beneath those column labels. Now the categories, though in a column here vertically, down below in the chart is listed horizontally along the x-axis. So when it comes to creating your chart, you're just basically typing over the labels that you have in your series and your categories, and also the data in the blue section. So how do you do that, or what would work best? Well, in this example, I want to be able to show the ghosts that we caught on film, audio, and by personal experience for the years of 2014, 2015, and 2016. How do I want to set that up? Well, for me, for the series, it just makes sense to want to go ahead and type in for series 1, film, hit the tab key, we'll do audio, ghosts we caught on audio, and then PE, ghosts that we had a personal experience with, then hit enter, and then you can see down below in the legend, it's updated it from series 1 to film, series 2 to audio, and then personal experiences is now orange. Now for the categories here, I want the categories to be in the year of 2014, 15, and 2016. So I can just come over here and type in 2014, 2015, and 2016. And you can see it updates it down below. Cool, so it looks like I got what I wanted. Now as far as you thinking, hey, how about if we flip that and we had film over here and the years up above? Well, you can do that, but for me this is what I want. And so next, let's go ahead and update our data. I don't want the default data here. So what we caught on film in 2014 was 25. Hit the tab key, 30, tab, 15, hit enter. And then notice when I hit enter, it didn't take me to the beginning of this row, but instead the beginning of where I started in the row above, which was in column B. So that's one of those fancy little default things that happens when you're working in Excel, or a worksheet that's based upon the Excel, but with no commands or features up here that you can see, except for our 3 options, and the 4th one to edit this in Excel, which we'll go over in just a minute. But in any case, let's finish this off. 20. Next, I don't need category 4, but that brings up a good point. What if you want additional categories or additional series, or in my case, I want not a 4th category, just the 3. So what you can do if you need to add more, just hover over. You see that blue little box right there at the bottom right hand corner, resizing handle, that when you hover over it, you get arrows pointing in opposite directions. Just click and drag that down or out and down, and then let go, and it adds a 4th series and a 5th category. So you can see down below it makes way for it, and I got my 4th category, but I haven't updated it with the label. But I don't need a 4th category, let alone a 5th one and a 4th series. So just think of it the other way now. If we want to get rid of those, just hover over that bottom right hand corner resizing handle and click and drag to push it over, up, and back, and let go, and there you go. Updates it. Doesn't include category 4, which is nice because if I do decide to add a 4th category like the year 2017 with their numbers, then it's available, but maybe for some groups that I present this to, they don't need to know about 2017 yet because maybe it hasn't happened and we're guesstimating. In any case, it looks good. So if I'm done, I can go ahead and close out. And if I'm like, oopsie doodle, I made a mistake, I do want to include 2017, or these numbers here for these series are off. We've got new updates. In any case, go ahead and edit your chart or the data they're in. Let's go ahead and right click in a blank area and go down to edit data. Now you've got that option, or you can hover over the arrow and you still get the same option, but in addition you can edit it in Excel. So if I go ahead and click on edit data, it brings up that very simplified worksheet, and that's great. Or let's go ahead and you can close out or just go ahead with it open here. Click on edit data in Microsoft Excel and it will open up Excel. Click on it and give it a second, and hey, there we go. We get all the fancy commands and features in the Excel program because it opened it up. And now it doesn't have the pretty colors here for the blue data and then the highlights for the other categories and series here. So in any case, I like to keep it simple. So when it comes to editing, I'll just right click and just edit data and not in Excel. And let's see next. Let me click off. Oh, we got a chart title. That's nice. How about if we go ahead and select that, click on it a second time so we can get the cursor flashing in it. So we can go ahead and just start typing over and replace chart title, the generic title, with ghosts captured. And then click off. Okay, that looks nice. What if you don't want a chart title? Well, to get rid of it, let's go ahead and click on it, click on the border, hit the delete key, and it's gone. And if you're like, oopsie doodle, I do want a chart title, and I don't have the undo to bring it back, well, I'm going to go over some of the more popular options and features when it comes to working with charts, like some of your design and formats. But in short, if you want to learn a great deal about charts, then watch my Excel training video on charts. This is enough to get you going and to go over the more popular features and commands in PowerPoint, where the greater detail is in my Excel training videos. Because hey, Excel, as you saw there in the simple worksheet, is an option that you can edit your data in Excel. So Excel has what it focuses on and what it can do great. Microsoft Word has what it can do great, like tables, and PowerPoint says, well, I'll try to pull in a little bit of both. So to keep it simple here, to add that chart title back in, and like I said, I'll go over the more popular features that can help you and get you going, is that with the chart selected, you get these three little tabs here, or buttons, that when you click on it, that's chart elements. You can see it over to the left-hand side. This one is the color and style, so color, style. And then this over here is your data that you can select or choose to view. Like if you don't want to see film, to include it, uncheck it, and then film is the green, right? And then go ahead and click apply, and it disappears. And of course you can go ahead and recheck it and click apply, and it reappears. Now you can do it that way, or you can click on select data, and it opens up a window that if you worked on charts in Excel, or you watch my training videos, this is what we work with. And you can see it's got this range selected, and it says the chart data range is on sheet 1, A1 through D4. And it's got those absolute values there that we talk about in Excel, the dollar signs. And then down below, you got the same options as we saw before we went to select the data here, that you can uncheck and say, I don't want to see audio, and I don't want to see the year 2016. Click okie dokie, and it reflects that. No 2016 and no audio. And then, of course, to bring it back up, well, click on the funnel, and you can see it's unchecked here, so you don't even have to go to that step and check it there and click apply, and it brings it back. Now, the reason why I'm showing you this really quick is that, let me close out of there, is that what you have available here are just quick shortcuts versus the coming up here on the related contextual design tab, because over here you have your chart elements. Click on it, like your chart title, which is also available here. Click on it, your chart title, and also your colors and styles there, which is also available, your styles here and your colors. And of course, with what we selected here is also up here for selecting your data. Click on that, and it opens up the same window. So just shortcuts. Okay, let's go ahead and close out. So speaking of which, let's go ahead, and when you click on this and you see the chart, you're like, oh, that's nice. But when you click on add chart elements and you go to chart here, you get additional options. So how can I get those additional options without coming up here on the ribbon? Well, let me go ahead and click off. Oh, not here. And let's go ahead and select it again, and then click on it to bring it back up. But with the chart title, you get that little triangle there that when you click on it, it expands, and you get the same options as you saw up here. You just have to go ahead and click on that triangle. And when you hover over it, it gives you a preview of it, as you can see over to the right there, as I don't move my mouse. Above the chart, center lay, or if you want more options, it opens up the task pane. But let's keep it simple here. Let's just go ahead and check it. If you check it, that's the default, where it's, when you click on this, going to be above the chart. And then you've got your axis titles that when you hover over them, you can see for the horizontal and vertical axis, if you want titles for them, let's go ahead and check it and I'll work with them. So there's the vertical. Go ahead and triple click really fast to select all the contents therein. And instead of having it called axis title, it represents the numbers. What are the numbers representative of? Maybe in billions of ghosts that we captured. Oh, that would be kind of funny. In any case, let's just say it's in thousands. Okay, great. Don't want to capture too many ghosts. And then down below the axis title here, triple click really fast to select the contents of it, and we can say these represent the years. So there's your axis titles, and if you want, you can go ahead and click on one, and with it selected, hit the delete key and get rid of one of them. And if you want to bring it back, of course, you can click on the plus sign here, and then go to axis titles, and then click on it to expand it, and include the primary horizontal axis again. And you can see when I hovered over it, it brought it up, but we'll leave it out. We'll just keep the vertical axis title, and go ahead and select it again, and click on plus. What else we got that I want to cover? Chart title, we brought that up, so we can go ahead and, how to select it and type over it, replace it with, ghost captured. And then we have the data labels. Now this is fun because when you hover over it, you can see that we get the actual numbers that represent those columns up at the top of each column. Because, well, let me go ahead and start my slideshow. Come down below on the status bar and click on slideshow. There you go. When you're giving your slideshow and you're like, okay, in 2015 we caught ghost audio, it's this bar right here. And somebody shouts out, how many is that? And you're like, well, it's almost 20 right there. And like, almost isn't good enough. I want to know, what exactly is it? Is it 18, 19? Oh, that's annoying. So what you can do is go ahead and hit the escape key on the keyboard to escape out of it. And then if you want to apply it to all of them, as you just saw, select it, click on the plus sign here for the elements, and then just check data labels. And you can expand that and get more options there if you want the labels to be, well, by default it's on the outside end. You can have it on the inside base, and you can see the preview there. Looks kind of fancy, but I'll leave it as outside end. Better yet, let me go ahead and uncheck that. If you just want to focus on a series, like let's say audio, select it, and notice when you click on any one of those in the series, it selects the entire series, all the audios in hot pink. And then if I hover over data labels, you can see it just brings it up at the top of each one of those columns in the categories, the hot pink, the audio, the series there. Or better yet, if you just want to focus on one, then click on one within that series, and then just go ahead and check data labels. And I don't know if you can see that, but it's 19. So you can hover over it and it will show you the value in the pop-up 19, but during the presentation, you can't hover over it. It won't give it to you, so you may want to go ahead and check the box data labels to add it to, if not all of them, at least the ones that you want to focus on, the exact numbers during the presentation. Let's see, we've got our grid lines. If I uncheck, ooh, that's all right. Let's go ahead and check that. Or of course, you got more options here that we cover in greater detail. In fact, a lot of this that we're going through real quick, I go over in greater detail in my Excel training video on charts. So this is just to get you started, to get you going with the presentation here, to get a quick chart. And then you got the legend that, well, when you click on it, you can have it to the right of the chart, top of the chart, the bottom of the chart, more options, and, well, opens up the task pane. You can show the legend without overlapping the chart. Let's go ahead and uncheck that, because when I uncheck that, it overlaps the chart. Let's go ahead and check it to add it, and close out. Go ahead and click on the plus sign. And you can add trend lines again. Watch my Excel training videos on that. I'll leave it as is. I won't talk any more about it. But I want you to know that I do go into it in greater detail. So there we go for the chart elements. You also have your styles and colors. You can hover over and see what you like here, or the colors. Or, like I said, if you come up here and click on the Design tab, it's available there. Hover over any one of those and see what fancies you. And click on More. I don't know if there's... Oh, that looks kind of fun. Hover over that one. The name of that one is Style 9. Select that. That looks great. And then notice the colors here. It goes green, pink, orange. There you go, green, pink, orange. So you can, come down here to green. Let's see, orange, and then that's periwinkle, maybe. So if you go ahead and click on that, it updates it, but you can get a preview of it before you select it. Oh, that looks kind of nice. Let's select that one. Or you can change the colors up here. Same thing. Go ahead and hover over that. Let me click off. And click off. And select it again. We already covered the last one. The filtering of what we want to see within our chart, the data they're in, the representation in column format. Let's see, a couple of additional things. How about if we want to go ahead and change the color of, like, let's say the series, all the blues, the audio. You can, of course, right-click on that, go down to Format the Data Series, opens up the task pane over to the right. And if we won't worry about this, I want to go to the bucket here, because in the bucket, when I expand the fill, I don't want to do it with the solid color, I want to do it with the picture. Now when I select picture, I can do it from File, or let's do it online, and then type in Happy Ghost, hit Enter, and scroll down to find, oh, there's Mr. Happy. Select him, click on Insert, and close out, and oh, he's happy. He likes being caught on audio. That's why he's so happy. Well, let's go ahead and click on Slideshow so we can see that slide in full presentation mode. And oh, that's nice. Although he's probably not as happy because he wasn't caught as much in 2015. Let's hit the Escape key to get out of that. So you can go ahead and do it for that by selecting the series as we did with the labels. You can do it for the entire series or click on one to focus on that. Then just right-click on that to format the data label, the data point, just to focus on that single column. And then next, if you want to be able to change your chart from a clustered column chart to, like, let's say a pie, because I really like pie, let's come up here on the Design tab, go to the Change Chart Type, click on it, and let's go ahead and select pie. And there we go. We'll go with that one and click Okie dokie and update it. And it's the same thing here. If you want to go ahead and update like a slice of it, click on it, selects all the slices, click on it again to focus on a single slice, and then right-click on it to format the data point. And let's see, secondary access. No, let's go to the bucket and say picture, and it brings in our ghost. Oh, he's happy being caught. It's like not a lot of people pay attention to us, and he likes to know that somebody's listening. Let's go ahead and close out and click on our slideshow down below on the status bar, and oh, that's fun. And then let's go ahead and hit the escape key. Now you can do that, create a chart from scratch. Let me go ahead and select the chart, hit the delete key. In fact, click on the border of the content box, hit the delete key. Because the other thing that you can do is if you created a killer chart or just a chart that you don't want to recreate in PowerPoint, shovel the same dirt twice kind of a thing, let's go ahead and insert that chart into our slide here. So let me minimize this down to the taskbar because on my desktop I've got my Excel file here. Double click. And there's a chart. So go ahead and select it and Control-C to copy it. Then come back down below on the taskbar, click on the button to restore our PowerPoint program, and then right click and we get all these paste options. Now if you want, you can see we got the different options that you can actually use the destination theme and link, or you can say keep the source formatting and link. Let's use the destination and link it. And linking is very nice because, let me select it, and let me use the resizing handles here. Because when it's linked, any changes that are made back in Excel will update here. So let's see, the highest one here, July, is $975. If I come back here, and it's $975, let's do something ridiculous so we'll know and spot it when we make a change here. Let's say 10,000 and hit enter. Okay, that's really different, right? Let's go ahead and click save. Come back to our PowerPoint. Oh, there you go. It updates it. So hey, great, somebody's working on the chart in Excel and you're just linking to it and taking credit for their work and being able to pull it into your presentation. Thanks for watching. Hey, as a quick reminder, if you like my video, please give it a thumbs up. You can also click on me and subscribe to my channel to get notified of the latest videos. And for great specials on my products, please see the description below this video.